this evening's meeting of the Stoughton Area School District Board of Education to order. Becky, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Mr. Bouban?
Here.
Mr. Coughlin?
Here.
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Ms. Fitzgibbon? Here. Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Ms. Robb?
Here.
Ms. Sorg?
Here.
Ms. Tarkanian?
Here.
President Dirks?
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the point in the meeting where we would normally listen to any public comment. I see that there are a number of people who have signed up to address the board tonight, and we do welcome your comments. We do ask, however, that when you come up to the lectern to speak, you give us your name and your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please, so that everybody gets a chance to speak. Just so you're aware, we don't respond to whatever you might have to say to us. We may discuss whatever that is during the course of the meeting, but it's not a dialogue. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of the protocol before we get started. So would anybody like to talk to us? Come on up.
Ted Samer, 800 Berry Street, Stoughton. I'm a retired educator of 34 years, and I'm here to encourage you to contract with Nelson Busing. The reason I'm here is that I have some expertise in this area. I was a high school teacher in both Waukegan, Illinois and Beaver Dam. And in Beaver Dam and Oshkosh, part of my administrative positions were in charge of transportation. I went to a seminar a number of years ago in which an attorney said that the best way to handle busing is to contract for services. And I'll give you a few reasons why. First of all, I think everybody needs to understand and appreciate that there's only one reason any of you are here and any of the employees are here, and that is to serve students. We're not here to serve the employees. No students, no employees. Now, if you go with a contracted service, there's a few things to keep in mind. In Oshkosh, we had 10,600 students and 5,000 or more students in buses. As transportation director and having 2 other positions in central office, 20% of my time, 50% of my secretary's time was devoted to education or to transportation. Now, that's very, very good because you have the contractor doing most of the work. One of the big things is that a contractor such as Nelson, I'm sure, has excellent routing programs. And that's one of the big deals on transportation, to get it right. So it's efficient, people are on time, and people do not get upset with you. A big issue has to do with how the drivers are disciplined, because you will have issues over time. One of the things I ran into was a gentleman who was picked up by the police for trying to encourage students to get into his car. Even though he was never charged under our contract, my fellow administrators and I were able to say to the bus company, this person may not transport our students. And if you are a government body, you don't have that flexibility. Again, you have economies of scale. I understand that you have a problem getting substitute bus drivers, and in Nelson's case, they're nearby, so that's a plus for you. The other thing is, you can keep your contractor honest simply by having the ability to bid out the contracts on a periodic basis. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next on the list was, I believe it's Jerry Fountain?
Terry.
Terry, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, you guys. My name is Terry Fountain. I drove Stoughton school bus for 31 years and proud of it. I totally disagree with this gentleman. When I started in 1984, we were leased out. We weren't leased out, but in 10 years in 94, I started 84. In 94, they wanted to lease us. We as bus drivers got out, did petitions, got it to the community, and they stood up for us, and the school board did also, and we kept our buses. And I totally disagree with this man, because as doing it 31 years, I got to know these families, and I got to know exactly why I was here. And yeah, I had benefits. So I had a double whammy on everything as far as I was concerned. It was the best job ever. I was a hairdresser, but bus driving was my gig. I loved it, loved the kids. Miss it now. I retired 2 years ago because of my husband's illness, and he just passed away. So as far as the drivers go here that I've worked with, they're all wonderful. And I'm going to tell you, as far as most of our drivers, and I would say probably all our drivers, we have a lot of integrity. You're going to find a lot of honest people here that are driving these buses and paying attention to what the kids are wanting, and the teachers, and the sports people. And as far as not being short, we've not been short drivers. We've always worked it out. Everybody is working together, making sure that these routes are taken care of. I'm going to tell you one thing, how I feel, and this is my opinion. We lack communication within the administration building. We need to work better with them, with the kids, with the parents. And as far as leasing out, I don't know that that's the right way to go. My opinion, it's not. So I hope that you think a lot about what's happening. I'd love to see this in the system still go. The gentleman that I've worked for here put a lot of work into keeping this in the district. And I think communication is what we need. And I don't have a computer, I don't do emails, I don't do any of that. I love to talk to people. I only got to talk to one school board member that I called that actually answered the phone and spoke with me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Jacobson, did you want to address the board?
Laura Jacobson, 1922 Williams Drive. I've been driving going on 25 years. And Ms. Sorg, you asked at the last meeting how it was going to impact us. So I'm just here to tell you how it's going to impact me. I'll be 58 on Thursday. If we contract out, I will lose my insurance. I'll have to retire in order to get paid for, you know, sick time and everything. If we go with Nelson, we lose all of, we don't have any sick days, we don't have any holiday pay. It's just going to impact my life very much, because I'll have to go out. Could I drive for Nelson? Yes. But I have to find a job where I can have insurance. So it's going to have a great impact on me and other drivers that are working towards their WRS insurance, state insurance. I know Nelson's only provides a 401k, and that's, nobody wants to give up their state retirement for a 401k. So I just want to let you know how it's going to impact me. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Brickson.
Hi, I'm Heidi Brickson, 325 County Road N, Edgerton. I have been with the school district for almost 21 years. I came into this position when I was younger. Since I was 5, I rode the bus with my mom. She started out with commuter service in Stoughton and then was employed here with the Stoughton Area School District. I was unemployed for a year. I had a young son of my own, and she said, Heidi, she's like, come drive bus, you'll love it. Though the thought of it terrified me. I did. I went in, I drove, took my test after a week, loved it, would never have never in my world would I have done anything else. I enjoy it. I've been on the same route for 18 years now. I've seen kids graduate. Some of them have kids of their own. I can't tell you the relationships and the bonds that I've created with them, not only with teachers, having teachers and their kids on my bus, the bond that I've created not only with my children in the school district. I just think that being in a school district type setting and having our buses with them, it creates a bigger bond, not just our family at the bus garage, but also more widely with the teachers that we interact with their children. And I go to town all the time. I see them all. We sit and we talk. We meet at places, and I just think that it's a bigger aspect of having it in the school system for us. Just being in the school system wise and having that input and knowing different things that are going on, other than if we outsourced, we wouldn't have so much interaction with what's going on with our own kids in the district and, the kids that we've been having for so long. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Shell.
Hi, good evening. Doug Shell, 1789 Williams Drive, Stoughton, Wisconsin. I'm a Stoughton resident, obviously, and a Stoughton area school district bus driver. I want to take you back kind of the last 4 years. It's the first day of school. We're at district in-service, and Dr. Tim Onsager is in front of the district employees. First thing he says and does is, "Where are our bus drivers? Please stand up. Let's honor our bus drivers. They're the first ones that see our kids each day and the last ones that see them." Occasionally, they'd have a motivational speaker. A couple years ago, it was Manny Scott, one of the Freedom Riders. "I'm in. I'm engaged. I bought the books. I have some of these kids on my bus." Let's fast forward to 2017, 2018. If this contract goes through with Nelson's, there will not be any district employees, or I should say bus drivers, at the in-service, okay? Please don't do that. Staying with the district, as you've heard, means something different to each and every one of these drivers. Everyone here is eligible for Wisconsin retirement. 9 of us are vested, that is. And I ask, please don't take away my eligibility for Wisconsin retirement. For some, it's sick time or personal holidays. They have families. Nelson's does not offer sick time or personal holidays. So I ask you again, please don't take away our sick time. Some, it may be health insurance. I know one of our drivers has 4 foster kids, and for him to make that switch over, it's going to be pretty costly. Some, it may be pay difference. It might be $1.65 an hour per route, or $2.35 an hour for trips. Over a time period, some of that is, or can be, up to a 20% pay cut, or over a $2,000 amount that these drivers will be losing. And for a driver that makes somewhere from $10,000 to $13,000, that kind of hits home. So I ask, please don't cut our pay. In parting, I guess when I worked at Nelson's, I had applied to Stoughton Area School District prior to working there. And guess what? Stoughton did not have any jobs. When they did, Rob called me, and because I still wanted to stay in the system, and my love of students and working in the schools, I came. I want to thank you, and I look forward to a great 2018 year and being inspired by Dr. Hansager and motivated. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Johnson.
Hi, I'm Heather Johnson. I live in Edgerton, just moved. I actually grew up here in Stoughton, went to Stoughton schools all my 12 years, and just recently started working for the transportation department. I've been working with these guys for 7 months, and although that may not be a long time, that is enough time for me to know that I am passionate about this. I have worked with my kids for 7 months, and that was enough time to develop a relationship and trust with each and every one of my kids. I know a lot of people say that us, you know, are retaliating or fighting this, but I look at it as we are being passionate about our jobs. We are very hardworking people, we care, and you will not find any other bus drivers like us, and that is true. We are a team, and if anything proves that we have been working as a team, it has been since we lost our director. I mean, we can stand here and talk about how, you know, this will affect each and every one of us individually, but that's where I do agree with the gentleman that spoke before us. It's not about us. We are serving our kids, and this will affect our kids. And I don't know any other way to describe that, but that it will happen if we go with Nelson's. Nelson's is a business. That's what they are. They sell their business. They don't specifically just do transportation. They manufacture, they sell buses, you know. We are specifically transportation for our kids. Our main focus is our kids. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Rourke McCune.
Good evening. I'm Rourke McCune. I live in Pleasant Springs, and I also drive a bus for Stoughton School District. But I'm here tonight as a property taxpayer. I've lived here for 24 years, and I have some concerns about what's going on with the transportation department. As everybody is aware, Mr. Riley is sick, probably is not coming back. Maybe not everyone is completely aware of what he did. I'm not completely aware of what he did, but I know he took care of route assignments and trip scheduling. He took care of maintenance issues, student disciplinary problems. He was there in the first week of transition every year from school to school, making sure things went smoothly. He filled in as a driver when needed. He hired and fired when he had to. And every year that I was there, which is going on 10 years now, I saw major improvements in the physical plant at the bus barn. He coordinated the purchases of new buses. He got that bus barn rebuilt, played a part in it. He got rid of the old heavy manual doors that you used to have to lift, which a lot of drivers could not do. He also had the bus office and the driver's wait area upgraded. Part of the way he did that was to move the repair bays out of the building and next door into the renew bus barn, so we wouldn't have to breathe solvents and diesel fumes and things like that the way we had been for like 8 years. He also saw that drainage was upgraded in our parking area and got aprons of concrete put in and so forth. He upgraded communications with radios and new camera systems. He bought new wheelchair buses with better lifts. Lots of things that he took care of, and I'm gonna miss him. I don't know how those things are gonna get done now, and I'm concerned about it, because it's always one thing or another thing. Now it's time to replace the man who did this job. And who's gonna replace him? It used to be him, one guy. Now we're gonna have a team headquartered 12 miles away. I'm wondering how it was that he took care of all of this, and they're proposing to substitute for him with 4 other people. Just running a few basic figures about cutting pay for certain individuals, including a mechanic and administrative assistant, it's going to cost at least $34,000 to transition this way, in addition to the amount of money that you'll save by not filling the position of transportation director. One guy did that. I can see how this is pretty good for Nelson's. They don't have to buy any buses. They don't really have to do a lot. I'm not real sure how it's good for the district. It just seems like a lot more cost, another layer of bureaucracy, and less local control. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Hoppy.
Good evening. My name is Rick Hoppy at 800 Haskell Court. We moved here about a year ago. In fact, a year ago, we moved into a house a year ago, this July 4th. One of the main reasons we moved to Stoughton was for the schools. And it's not just for the teachers and the buildings and the maintenance. It's also for the heart of the people that operate this school system, including definitely the bus drivers. I think it's very important to keep it local so you can have some control and some heart in the bus drivers and the system. I'll give you an example where I used to work. It was a major aerospace company, and like all those big companies, we did a lot of outsourcing year after year, more and more complex systems, software, you name it. And each time we did that, there was a real heart and soul that was lost. The people that were let go, of course they weren't there anymore, but the people that were left who had to do more and more because the outsourcing did less and less. They saw their days as a 40-hour day in and out. The quality of work was low. And so the ones that were left had to make up and either do more work, correct their errors, or constantly go back and forth. So our systems, who was an aerospace company, were less and less, more and more risky, and we had a lot of problems with development. It's very important to keep the people who have the vested interest and caring for the community and the kids. And that's, I mean, I've had 8 kids. We came from Madison. Their bus system is less than perfect. We had a lot of problems. We had, constantly calling up. We had kids with disabilities. So we always had every year we had some issue. And it was for them, it was an 8-hour job. They were in and out, and they had less interest. Keep it local, keep it with the heart of the people, and Stoughton will build. One of the big issues we have in this community is bringing in more students, more young families. And we got a good opportunity here because when we came down here and like looking at the schools and went through the schools, we saw that the people really cared and really were interested in the kids. We could have stayed up in Madison or moved out to another community, but we didn't. And the reason we didn't is because what you have here, don't lessen it. Listen, from me, listen good, listen, Siri, judge in your heart. Don't let it fly by. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Hoppy?
Oh, no, he just wrote my name down.
Oh,
Of course I
okay.
haven't.
All right. Is there anybody else that wanted to address the board?
My name is Philip Zimmerman, 430 Nottingham Road. I'm also a bus driver for 26 years. Remember the days Rob would call me when I was at work? Oh, we need an extra bus down here. When? 5 minutes ago. Because we had a communication problem of scheduling. Sure, I'll be down in a few minutes. We had another one taking our basketball team to Green Bay. There's 3 buses scheduled. All of a sudden, they needed a 4th bus. calls me at work. Can you come and drive? We need another bus to go to Green Bay for our basketball team. When do you need it? 10 minutes ago. Well, I said, give me 15 minutes, I'll be down and get the bus and be at the high school, and away we go for our kids. And also, we're here for the community. I don't know if you remember, 3 years ago, when they had evacuation to the hospital, they called Rob to get the buses up there to help people get out of the hospital. I think in 15 minutes, we had 3 buses up there to help evacuate the hospital. So we need to keep it in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wanted to address the board tonight? Okay, thank you all for your comments. Board members, we do have reason to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85 sub 1 sub E, as well as section 19.85 sub 1 sub F. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Allison, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Donna. Is there, we should do this by roll call vote.
Mr. Bouban?
No.
Mr. Coughlin?
No.
Mr. Frett?
No.
Ms. Fitzgibbon?
Yes?
Ms. Sorg?
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian?
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin? Oh, and sorry, Mr. Jackson?
I would like to say no on the transportation, but if it's a personnel issue, yes. I don't know how that works.
Well, the closed session is for 2 reasons.
No.
Ms. Sorg? Did I ask you already?
Mhm.
I have my list, Ms. Robb?
Yes.
President Dirks?
Yes. So the motion to go into closed session carries. Board members will meet upstairs in a minute or 2. And then after that, we'll reconvene the regular meeting down here. motion you need to make is you move to suspend the rules and consider modifying the agenda as you suggested, which requires a second and needs a 2/3 majority to pass. Okay, we're all here? All right. The board is back in open session. The next item on our scheduled agenda is the legislative update, which normally would be run, or at least Ms. Tarpinian would preside over that part of it.
President Dirks, I move to suspend rules and consider modifying the agenda to move the legislative update after discussion action item transportation planning.
Okay, but we would then proceed with the district administrator report consent agenda as noticed.
It's just, yeah, it's just
Okay.
that we have a letter to discuss, and there's a lot of legislation that, in the interest of time and for some of the people that are here, I would move that we go to that item sooner rather than later.
Sure, so just so that we all understand the motion, it's to move number 5 on the regular meeting agenda down to be considered after 9A on the noticed agenda. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
I think that was Yoli.
Yep.
To do this requires a 2/3 majority vote, so I'd ask that Ms. Egan take a roll call vote. I'm sorry, is there any discussion on moving, suspending the rules for that purpose? Seeing none, then we'll take a vote.
Ms. Robb?
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Sorg?
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Bouban?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzgibbon?
Yes.
President Dirks?
Yes. All right, so that brings up then the discussion action item A, the transportation planning.
Are we still going to do district administrator?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Right, we're up to number 6, district administrator report.
Just have a few numbers for the board. In 2016-17, so this end of this year, those of you that went to our honors and scholarship night, 118 students from the class of 2017 were awarded $238,450 from our local community. And that was the largest amount awarded in 64 years. So it talks to the generosity of our community and our partnerships. Continuing along that theme, as of this month, we have received $343,662 in donations and grants to support our Fab Lab. A lot of those from our local community. And that does not include about $50,000 we have in grants from the WEDC. Continuing on numbers and our support by our community and our partnerships, we have approximately 572 active and current volunteers who were in our schools this year, giving their time and their talents to help our students succeed. So I thought as we were wrapping up this year, I thought I'd share some numbers with the board of some great partnerships and great things that our community does to support us.
Those are great numbers. I mean, we would not we would not be able to fulfill our mission of educating our students if we didn't get that kind of support. It's fantastic. Any questions for Dr. Onsager about his report? Okay, thank you. Then we move on to the consent agenda.
I move approval of the June 12th regular meeting minutes. I move approval of the check register as presented. We would like to say thank you to the following individuals and groups and move approval of their donations to the district. $468.47 from Center Ice Club for hockey jackets and bags. $350 from Stoughton Fairway Club for girls golf conferences, travel expenses, and related budget adjustment for $818.47. Move approval of professional educator resignation of Julie Incity and Shannon Malley, effective at the end of the 2016-17 school year. In professional educator resignation, Jordan Sorensen and Carly Ditche, effective immediately for the 2017-18 school year. I move approval of permanent professional educator contract for Gina Hall, Erica Cleftat, Jeffrey Clark, Deanna Layton, Kelly Laux, and Brian Webb for the 2017-18 school year. I move approval of an extended field trip request for Stoughton High School Advanced Journalism North Star students to travel to the National Journalism Convention in San Francisco, California from April 12 to 15, 2018.
The consent agenda has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Allison. Any discussion? Other than hoping you get to be a chaperone for the North Star trip? All right, seeing none, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda as moved, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. There are no discussion items scheduled for this evening, which brings up then the transportation planning discussion action item. And I would entertain a motion to approve the contract, or approve going forward with the contract with Nelson, so that we can discuss the matter.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Sarah. All right, discussion then. Does anybody have anything they want to say about this?
Hey.
Sorry, Yoli?
Go ahead.
No, you had your hand, you raised your hand.
Well, I can see, we always put our students first. And I will say that's our vision, and we always have to do that. However, I don't see that contracting out is going to affect negatively or positively our students. Having said that, I don't think I would be able to go to sleep thinking that some people is going to have cut pays and less no sick days, etc. So I just wanted to, we would like to think about that better. So I have to say.
Okay, Donna, I think you wanted to speak.
I'm wondering if Erica could come up and answer a couple questions that I had regarding WRS eligibility and also health insurance. What's the criteria and how many employees do we have, or percentage-wise, that are eligible for either?
WRS eligibility requirements are now 880 hours. They're more than they used to be. Most of our
I'm sorry, Erica, can you speak up a
yep.
little? Thanks.
So WRS eligibility is 880 hours.
A year?
A year,
Okay.
yep. We currently have 10 total employees in this department, 9 of our drivers that are eligible for WRS. Eligibility used to be lower. The total number of hours you had to work was, I think, originally 440 hours. That has changed in the last number of years, so that's how many people we currently have eligible, 9 drivers and our mechanic. We have, as far as insurance goes, as a district, our eligibility requirements are 30 hours a week. Because we are a school, there's guidelines in the Affordable Care Act about how many hours people have to work to be eligible, and our eligibility is during the school year. So you have to average 30 hours per week to be eligible for our insurance.
And for the WRS to be eligible, if you've already put money in, but you're not retirement age, do you lose that? Or does that always come, does that follow you?
You are vested after 5 years, I believe. So once you're vested, it's your money. You'll get it at some
So
point
you'll
in
get it,
time.
you'll get it back?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Allison.
Yep, that's okay. Actually, Erica. I was just-
That's fine.
So I know one of the things that we've looked at with the proposals that have been provided, that there are hybrid positions with Nelson's that would allow drivers to have more hours. Do we have that capability? Are we able
In the
to offer
district?
more hours?
We have a couple of midday routes. Most of our drivers work morning and afternoon, which is the equivalent of about 4 hours. We have a couple midday routes for 4K, and then we have trip opportunities available, but that's really the extent of what we have available for people, for the most part. I mean, there's a handful of opportunities that can come up on occasion if we have an alternate placement for a student or a certain IEP, but we don't have the same kinds of opportunities that exist at Nelson's due to the kind of business that they have. The kinds of things they've talked about, we just, like the hours that might be available for their, their bus sales division, we just don't have that.
Okay. What about some of the open positions that we have? I guess I'm just thinking like if there was, additional help needed even on a temporary basis for maintaining buses or mechanic or, I'm just wondering if there are other possibilities because it just seems like, we've identified some shortages in staffing.
Well, the shortages in drivers, I mean,
The shortages in drivers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they all drive at the same time,
Okay.
with the exception of trips, yeah.
Other questions for Erica? Donna?
Erica, you've mentioned that we have some gaps in our current transportation department and that we would most likely, if we continue status quo, we're going to need to hire, I'm not talking about drivers, but we're going to have to hire some additional staff, namely possibly a mechanic or additional support staff. Do you have an estimate on the number of FTEs that would be?
I will admit I have concerns about our expectations from a capacity standpoint of the number of vehicles that we expect one person to maintain. So I had talked about the possibility of needing an additional person to help in the mechanical area. I estimate the total cost for salary and benefits for a position like that to be about $60,000. That would be one person. And I don't know whether it would be a separate individual person, but definitely hours that we would need to potentially look at if we wanted to add the ability to incorporate more of a comprehensive safety program and to maybe look at coverage for dispatch times outside of, because the person we have in our coordinator position can do dispatch during the day when we have school, but then there's also evening trips, there's weekend trips. So if we wanted to look at some additional people to accommodate some of those needs that I believe exist, we had talked about potentially the equivalent of 1 to 2 people for that.
And is that at the 60K or would that be at a different?
We had looked at potentially maybe around 50,000
Okay.
total cost for then. So when you add the two together, about 110.
110 to 160. You said maybe 1 to 2 of those.
No,
support?
I'm sorry. The combination
Okay.
of the additional support in the mechanical area plus the additional support in all those other areas, totaling about 110.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that I would recommend that's what, I mean, we would have to really look at how we would want to incorporate that, what the best option might be, because we live in a world where I wouldn't necessarily say we increase our budget immediately and add those people. We would need to have a new coordinator hired. We need to look at all the options available and see how we could make it work at the most reasonable cost possible.
Okay. And do we have routing software that we use?
Yes.
Is it the same program as Nelson uses?
No. No. We use Versatrans, what do you guys use? TransFinder.
Okay.
No matter what the outcome, I think something that the board has prioritized through this process is safety enhancements of training our drivers how to implement safety measures on their routes. And what are some of the things you foresee as becoming part of, you know, the new life of going forward for implementing safety measures if we stay within the district?
I think what we'd want to look at, I mean, I think there'd be a number of things that we could potentially look at. I love the idea, when I've been working with Nelson's, they've talked about a monthly safety meeting. That's something we do in our buildings and grounds area. I think that would be something that would be great to look at in this department too. And the topics could vary from one month to the next. And sometimes it's just a review of things that people maybe already know, maybe are already doing, but just that constant reminder, I think, is a real positive thing. I do think that we can do a better job working with our school personnel, looking at how we could support drivers in learning how to deal with potential behaviors on the bus, sort of like classroom management type skills. Again, it's not that we've never done it, but there just hasn't been a real consistent process in place to navigate through some of those things. We've talked, one of the things that Nelson does provide that's unique to them is this school bus driver rodeo that they talked about. I mean, that's not something we could do here internally. Skid pad training is available. I think you could go up to the Fox Valley area. There's different places you could do that, but that would require us to send people to those locations, and that might be something we would look at as well. I mean, those are just a few things off the top of my head that I've learned about that I think would be worthwhile to explore.
And those would be additional costs?
Yes.
In addition to the 160 additional to keeping it in-house for salaries?
I would, the cost that we would acquire to have drivers put in an extra time, yes, that would be extra. And in the materials I had before the last board meeting, we talked about, I laid out like what the cost for the monthly safety meetings would be and what the cost would be, you know, to add like a full day's worth of training. And again, I want to be careful when I just was talking about FTE again and what that cost could be. I just want to be careful that I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying that that's set in stone. We would just have to look at if we wanted to incorporate the similar components that would be available to us if we were to work with Nelson's. If we wanted to do something similar here, you know, what would that look like? And it doesn't have to look the same. We would have to kind of dig into that and see what we could do.
But with Nelson's, that would all be encapsulated into that one figure that we had discussed.
Correct.
Other questions for Erica?
I just have a comment.
Sure.
This topic is near to my heart. My father drove school bus for 44 years, and at his funeral there were 600 people that came through because he had third-generation students that he grew to know and love in the community. But as a board member, we have a perspective that, you know, we have to keep a broad sense of the resources and the personnel and financial issues that are before us. And, you know, this proposal is a way of trying to best manage our resources that we have as a district. And I think $100,000 is a significant amount that could be utilized in other areas, such as directly impacting the classroom. So I see the perspective of the drivers because I've sat on the bus with my dad when I was only 4 years old, but I also know that, you know, in the role of a board, I see it also in a more broad sense of utilizing our resources of staffing and management of safety and resources more broadly. So I guess the questions that I have that cannot be answered tonight, but, you know, pondered throughout the time in our community is, you know, what are some of the assurances that Nelson can offer our drivers that would ease the anxieties that are being raised tonight? And ultimately, I think we're trying to make a decision that everyone can live with. Some will be happy, some won't be happy, but ultimately, what is it that we can offer as a district, whether that's outsourcing or in-house, that we all can live with? And that's for each of us to vote, I guess.
Other questions?
I don't have any questions. I have a comment, but it's not for Erica.
Okay, I've got a question or two for Erica. We're short drivers right now, correct? How many more drivers would we need to hire if we kept everything in-house? How many more drivers would we need to hire to be full strength for September, bearing in mind that stuff happens and people call in sick or have a sick kid or something like that and can't come to work that day?
I would say that we ended this school year in a position where if people had to call in sick, it was a challenge. When I look at how many people we had last year and where we ended this year, I believe we would need to have 3 additional people available to get us through flu season, to handle the spring season when we have a lot of trips, that kind of thing, to be close to the number that we had a couple of years ago.
And if you're unable to hire 3 or 4 people by September 1st, what do we do? Are the routes longer, or what do we do?
Well, we could certainly evaluate routes. I will say what we had to do in the past, we've had to have our mechanic drive, we've had to have the coordinator position drive. We've done everything possible to keep the routes that we've had in place without impacting kids. And that would certainly be our ultimate goal. How can we continue to function in a way that has the least amount of impact to kids? I will say that I don't like the solution of having those 2 particular roles driving. They have other things that they need to be doing. I don't know. There were a couple times this year when we did need to rely on Nelson's to provide service to us because we did not have enough people to do the routes and the trips that we needed to get done. I don't know if that would still be a possibility, you know, if we're short, if we can work with them on an as-needed basis, but that does get expensive.
Thank you. Other questions? Steve?
What is our annual budget for transportation?
It's about 1.2 million.
And does that include the costs for Nelson when we needed substitute drivers or fill-in drivers?
I'd have to look at, that was our budget.
That was our budget?
Yep,
Okay.
we have to look at where we end up the year and what we actually spent.
Okay.
But I do believe we'll be within budget just because, again, we had fewer people this year. And we were, you know, we had our coordinator on a medical leave since December. So there was costs there that we weren't spending.
So one other question. Does our current policy allow us to sole source a contract of that size?
It does.
It does?
Yep.
Other questions?
Oh, John.
So the concept of the contract that has been presented to us is for potentially up to 3 years, and it encompasses the bulk of our transportation department with the exception of owning our own buses. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yes, it's a fair way to say it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I don't misspeak. Is there, since we seem to be under an immediate staffing shortage that prompted us to even consider in the first place, or the district to consider in the first place, contracting the entirety of the transportation department, is there any subset of services that would help us not have to fire employees to be able to relieve some of that pressure in the near term, so that the district could evaluate the future of our transportation department in over a longer period of time, and the board would be able to help better understand the future of transportation in our school district?
Well, I mean, we can, I don't know. So we would just outsource the roles that we're currently not having in place, potentially?
I'm not trying to load that with any sort of assumptions of my own. I was just curious if that's...
we could certainly explore something. And can I just clarify too that this wasn't the only reason that prompted me to look at alternative options. What really started the ball rolling was the fact that our coordinator went on a medical leave, and when we learned that he wouldn't be back, that's when I started doing some more serious research. But the need to hire that position isn't in and of itself the reasoning behind the recommendation. There were a number of pieces, and we talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, but there were a number of pieces that went into ultimately making that recommendation. The needing to hire is one piece, but then also looking at kind of what Sarah had talked about, the expanded infrastructure that we'd be able to acquire, and resources we'd be able to tap into that are very specific to the industry that we don't currently necessarily have all the expertise. Not to say that we don't have some of it, but just being able to tap into those resources for the same cost that we currently have was another piece of it. So I don't want to say that some sort of a hybrid option isn't a possibility. We haven't really looked at that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thanks, Eric.
Yep, no problem.
So, board members, is there any desire for any further discussion on this before we go to a vote?
Yeah, I would like to make a few points. First of all, I want to thank Erica for all of her hard work on this. She was gracious enough to meet with me this past week. I spent a lot of time looking into this. I take this decision very seriously. And I just want to kind of try to summarize a few things that I've learned. I also feel like I owe it to the public to let you know how I'm going to vote face to face. And so it's clear to me that that status quo isn't going to be okay. We need to make some changes with our transportation department. I don't know that that's a manifestation of any one person. In fact, I don't think it is. I think it's just the way that it is. But there's some challenges that the department faces that need to be addressed. I think the question for me is, as I've pondered this, is the best way to address that to try to address it in-house or to outsource it. I also want to thank Nelson's. They gave a wonderful presentation. They appear to be a very reputable organization. But a few things that come to mind. One of the things I learned in graduate school from educational administration and the curriculum class was the education of our children in terms of the school sense starts the minute they get on that school bus. The school bus is essentially a classroom. So I don't necessarily separate that from what's happening at the school. Certainly there's different dynamics, but I do believe that bus drivers are some of the most important teachers our kids have. And any adults that work directly with our kids are important. I have 2 kids that ride the bus. I've never heard a complaint from them outside of what I think many would complain about having to ride a school bus. This process, as I said last meeting, came upon us fairly quick. And I think it's even been impossible to get all the information that I would like to make a decision, but we're in a point where we have to decision. A couple things I want to also clarify. I don't really have any concerns about the safety of our students if we stay in-house. I don't have any data to support that they are in any way unsafe. And I share that because that's been one of the things as a variety of literature that's been sent out that I've read. One other thing I want to mention is a few folks, I think a gentleman in the audience spoke to we're here for our students first. There's absolutely no question about that. No question about that. I hear that a lot. I've heard that a lot in my 22 years of education. The one thing I want to point out, though, is we need to take care, in order to take care of our students, we have to take care of the adults that work directly with them. It's just that simple to me. And so I want to make sure that, I wanted to make sure I stated that because my vote is based on what I think is best for our students, what I think is best for our district. One other thing I want to share with you as I went through the process of making my decision was we have a strategic plan. And it says in here under workforce, the district will use best practices to hire, develop, and retain a skilled, empowered, and engaged workforce to ensure that the district achieves its mission and vision. That, from what I understand, this is still the strategic priority. So I think it comes down to how each individual board member believes we achieve that. I believe we achieve that by keeping this in-house, so I will be voting against going with a contract with Nelson's. That is in no way a criticism of Nelson Bus Company or the people who have done the work behind this, but based on the information that I have, and based on what I believe is best for our students in our district, that is how I'm choosing to vote. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, then before I call the question, there are a couple things that I want to say. First of all, as a parent of two kids who went through Stoughton schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, the younger just graduated last year. Both boys rode the bus some of the time they were in our schools, and the experiences that they had, from everything I can remember, was generally very positive. And I would agree with Tim that, and I'm talking to you drivers who are sitting in front of me. Like Tim said, you're the first face they see when they start the day, you're the last face they see when they leave and go home. And your job is very important, and I appreciate personally the work that you've done and the work you continue to do. I also want to say that I have concerns about trying to maintain the status quo. As a board member for most of the last 7 years now, this driver shortage is something that we've been dealing with for a while now. Erica just told us we need minimum 3 more drivers, preferably 4, within the next couple of months. Otherwise, we don't have an otherwise. There is no plan B, and that's a problem. I have been made aware over the years of a couple of safety type issues. No kids got hurt or anything like that. But from what I know of what Nelson has said that they would do for our drivers, those issues would be much less likely to have occurred. I think based on the discussions we've had thus far, I think the board is probably in agreement that we would need to make some changes with respect to safety training, no matter what happens tonight. The advantage of going with Nelson is that'll happen right away. You know, they've got safety programs, safety training in place. They've got a safety coordinator. There's training that they can do in-house that we can't do without paying extra money. The mission of the Stoughton Area School District, with students as our #1 priority, is to ensure educational opportunities. I feel for the bus drivers who may end up taking a pay cut by going with Nelson. I really do. I know how that feels. I've been a state employee for over 20 years. When Act 10 happened, I was also married to a school teacher. Our take-home pay got cut almost 10% overnight, so I know how that feels, believe me. But like Sarah said, our responsibility is #1 to the kids and to all of the other stakeholders in the community. And those responsibilities to the various stakeholders, parents, taxpayers, everybody else, those nearly always coincide. Sometimes they don't. And I think this is one of those situations where what I believe is best for the district is probably not necessarily best for the 23 people that we have in our transportation department right now. I am mindful, however, that Nelson has said that they want to hire all of these drivers. Erica has proposed paying out accumulated sick time as a cash payment that will smooth the transition for a lot of people. Nelson, as I understand it, also has more hours available during the summer than we have. We have almost no hours available during the summer. That'll help too. But the bottom line right now, and I can appreciate what you said, Tim, about having to make a quick decision here. You know, in an ideal world, we would have started this process a year ago. You know, we might have explored other options. We might have had more candidates for the coordinator position than what we have right now, but we don't. And we have to make a decision tonight. If we don't approve this tonight, we will not be able to go ahead with a contract with Nelson. We will have to continue to try to limp along with things in-house. Erica has basically taken on much of the role that our transportation coordinator had to. That's not good for us. That's not what we're paying her to do. Erica's our business director. She's got other things to do besides helping run the transportation department. We can hope that we get a good candidate to head up that department, but we may not. So as I see it, Nelson is a good alternative to what we're doing right now, and frankly, I don't think that we have a viable alternative tonight to contracting with Nelson. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I know that we have a division of opinion on this, so instead of a voice vote, I'm going to ask for a raise of hands. All those in favor of passing the motion, please raise your hands.
Could you restate the motion, please?
Okay, the motion is to go ahead with a contractual agreement with Nelson to take over our transportation services. Is that your motion? Because you made it.
I said so moved, so whatever it was, but I just wanted to make sure that I knew that
Right.
which direction a yes vote was. So.
Okay. So, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Please raise your hands. Thank you. That motion is defeated. Folks, I appreciate your sentiment, but this is a meeting. All right, next up is the legislative update. Ms. Turpinian.
I'm sorry, I got to move back to find it. I move that we approve the policy 1013 wellness.
I thought we were doing the legislative
Oh, I'm
update.
sorry. You're right. So I had that sitting right there. So the legislative, there is a lot of information in there, and I think mainly we're not going to combine all of the things. What I've been doing is I send things to Becky as I come across them, and then they got combined, and it's really kind of an unwieldy document. And the viewer we have to look at PDF on our Chromebooks does not give us a searching ability. I don't know why that is. So I apologize for that, but the bottom line is there's just a ton of stuff going on with the budget, but all reports are that they are not, the legislature is going to miss their budget deadline of June 30th. The Joint Finance Committee opted not to meet this week, and they only have 5 days. And then just with the process of getting it signed, it just is not going to happen. With that being said, the Wisconsin State Journal is reporting that lawmakers have reached a tentative deal on the per pupil aid funding, which was proposed by the governor, and that's the $200 per pupil in the first year and an additional $204 per pupil next year. Where they are disagreeing now is transportation and taxes. So it looks like we are going to at least see that, but there's a whole host of other things that may kind of come in. In the end, there's typically that's happened in the last several budget cycles is omnibus motions being made in the middle of the night, and We are hoping that that doesn't occur this time, but up till now, we haven't heard anything to tell us otherwise. So you can read all of these things as you like, but what I would like to do is I have drafted a letter. I think one thing that's super important for us is this legislation. There's 6 bills that have restrictions on referenda. And one of the ones that's most important to us is any district who has passed a recurring referendum, if this legislation is passed, it's a pair of companion bills that you can see the letter that is up, that they would roll those back after 5 years, and we would go back to pre-funding levels, which would be very significant to us. And so WASB is recommending that we pass a resolution and or write a letter to our legislators, including the members of the Joint Finance Committee, because we have a 2-step process in terms of passing a resolution. I don't know if we have the time to pass that resolution, and so I am recommending that you authorize me to send a letter. I've drafted something for you to review. I think I sent you an email about it earlier so that you could pull it out of that 80-page document. And in that, I just tried to keep it down. I used the points WSB has asked us to use, but also tried to put in our own situation, which was in 2014 when we did pass this referendum. We were the lowest funded district. We were below the state average. We were the lowest funded district in Dane County. And that we have not seen a per pupil increase since that time. And that if we were to have to roll that back, it would significantly impact us. And our community voted, and it was overwhelmingly 63%. And I don't know if as you can see in the letter, I don't know if we should have to be micromanaged to the point where we need to be told what is best and what is not when our communities voted. I heard several people tonight say local control. This is local control. So I don't know, can we do like a thumbs up, thumbs down about a letter?
I think we can, and I think I talked with you about this previously. I think that because we do have a 2-step process, this particular issue, I think, is relatively non-controversial. But I am uncomfortable to make it a general rule that we do things like this without an opportunity for the public to weigh in before we vote. So if you could look at other districts and see how they do this, I mean, as you said, at budget time, stuff just gets stuffed in every day, and we want to be able to respond. On the other hand, we do need to let the public weigh in when they want to. This one, I think, is pretty non-controversial for Stoughton, but I can imagine others that might not be. So.
Duly noted.
Yeah. Questions, Steve?
No question. I think it's very well written. I just would offer that where it says the bill or a bill, maybe just add the word proposed in there. There's a couple places, and I can go over that. But I think it's well written, and I agree that I don't think it's controversial at all. It supports our district very strongly. So.
And I would concur with everything that's been said, and I appreciate taking the time to write the letter. I think it looks very good.
I can open it up and give you that reference.
Other questions or comments from anybody?
I know, I mean, the letter is new. We kind of talked about it last meeting, that you were going to do this. I mean, was that not kind of a
I think we're okay
discussion?
tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're okay tonight, but I think going forward, we should try to figure out something else.
By the time we figure it out, it won't matter because
It's not gonna matter.
we don't have any big things happening then after.
No, but I'm.
Right, but it's good to have
2
something
years
in
from
place.
now, there'll
2
be
years from
another
now.
budget discussion. Happens every other year.
So what I understand that you're saying is that we can vote for this now, but in the future, doing it like the public and, okay.
Yeah, I really think that's the way we do our normal business, and I
Sure.
think that's what we should strive to do.
Oh, absolutely.
This is an unusual circumstance.
And this doesn't keep any of you from writing letters
Right,
yourself.
right.
You're just not writing them on behalf of the school board. With that being said, if we were to write this letter, I mean, would we all be signing it, or would you be letting me sign it on behalf of the board?
Whatever's more impactful.
Yeah, whatever's fast, I'd sign it.
I think it's more impactful to have everybody sign, but I don't know if that's possible, given that we are only here right now, and we don't have it printed out, and then there's some edits being suggested, so.
And we don't meet again for almost a month.
They're not critical
Right.
edits.
Then we're saying.
If it helps move it along, no edits.
But I think it's a good point about process, you know, I mean, you're right, this is not controversial, but just on principle.
Right.
It's always better to have people weigh in, but I'm very much in favor of it, and thank you for writing it, it's very well written.
And when will you be sending it? And it will be you print it out, sign it and send it, or you'll do a?
Yes, I would work with Becky on that, and I think we try to get that out tomorrow. Because I would like it to go out on letterhead.
So, is anybody opposed to this? Okay, I'm not seeing any negative thoughts or
Thank you, Don.
expressions.
It's lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else for legislative update?
Just keep your eyes open and
Okay.
ears open and
Kind of
email
overwhelming.
line going.
At budget time,
It's just crazy.
yeah.
Well, thanks for pulling all that together, it's
Yes.
an absolute ton, and I got through as much of it as I could, which.
Yeah,
which
I
was
mean, we're
most
gonna
of it.
try to do I named them specifically so you could like pick and choose what you wanted to read, but, you know, we'll do that next time, but it's a lot, yeah, I mean, and things just came out today, and, you know, I'm just telling you, I have to just tell you about it, so.
Right, okay. Next up then, as a discussion action item, is proposed policy 1013. And I would entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve policy 113 as presented.
1013?
1013, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Yoli. Discussion.
Sure, I'd like to say some things. A couple things have come up. One is that the administrative team has started the very beginning talks of implementation, how they would do this. And there's been a lot of confusion over the name of the policy because it's just called wellness. And we have a wellness coalition, which is a partnership between the school district, the hospital, and city. And so there was a suggestion to actually rename this policy. And I came up with several options just to kind of keep it clean. Is Judy here? One that I was looking at was either student health and wellness or student nutrition and physical activity, and then in parentheses, student wellness policy. I'm a little leery of student health and wellness because health would imply mental health as well, and this policy does not address that at all. And what it really is nutrition and physical activity. And so I was thinking we might want to rename it student nutrition and physical activity. And if we want to keep wellness in the title, parentheses, student wellness, parentheses.
So are you moving to amend your motion?
It is something that I would move to amend, yes.
You can do that. So what is your formal motion to amend?
That we approve the policy as presented with the title change of, or for 1013, with the title change, student nutrition and physical activity, student wellness,
Is there a second for the motion to amend?
I second.
Steve, any discussion on that, on the motion to amend? Okay. All in favor of amending the original motion, which basically just changes the title of policy 1013, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. This then takes us back to the original motion to approve the wellness policy.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on that?
I did have a couple of things to say or to mention. After our last meeting and our discussion, I did hear from a couple of stakeholders who were really concerned about some of the changes that the district is talking about. And when I went back and I looked at the policy as we are presenting it, the policy is very streamlined and sort of on top. And just saying that we are going to follow all the federal guidelines, everything we need to do. But it's the guidelines, which is really what people have some concerns with. And I spoke with Judy, and I just said, personally, I'm going to ask that we really vet whatever changes that we do very, very thoroughly with parents. We just spent 4 hours or more talking about 23 adults driving buses, and this is going to affect 3,000 students. And so I think it really needs to go through the proper channels. I think we need to go super slow on it. I think that in the preliminary administrative meetings, that's already been decided. That it is going to be, next year is a transition year. So I don't want anyone to feel that we're making this sweeping change right off the bat. But it is about our students' health, and I think with the right education of parents and staff and students, that I think it seems very doable. People are excited from what I understand. I don't know if you had anything to add, Judy, from your meetings that you've had so far?
Only that there's those teams building.
The school-based wellness teams.
The guidelines are pretty clear about this and required by the new statute that says each building will have a wellness team, a title, I suppose, to be determined now, where representatives are really helping educators and working for kids and bus drivers and food service to say random acts of kindness with food isn't really that kind overall, and we need to be thinking about other alternatives. Think about how you can celebrate, how we can recognize and reward kids with more activity or things other than food. That isn't to say that we won't ever have food, and so it's really important that we're clear about that. It's just that we want to, we work with really smart people that will be able to think of creative things that kids want to do and be involved in, that will actually probably be more engaging than some of the simple food served that we're using right now. So in the transition year that Donna's talking about, I think that we'll come up with ideas that we haven't generated before because we frankly haven't sat down and tried. Each of those teams will have a representative that comes at the district level. We're required to keep minutes, be accountable to the state for that, and be able to share ideas across schools.
Thanks for sharing that, Judy. I think that as many on the policy committee as well as the subcommittee that actually drafted this and discussed it at length, they had an entire year to digest all of the information. And so we have to be understanding that our community members, especially our parents, are going to also have that opportunity. So I appreciate that. And that's all I have to say. Nobody has offered any other changes.
Just a question, by approving the policy doesn't mean we approve the guidelines?
That's correct.
Okay.
May I ask?
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, you had.
I just wanted to ask Donna, sir, I want to be clear. Are you saying that these guidelines then are likely to change?
I don't think that they'll necessarily change because it's just how they're going to be implemented. It's the implementation that we're talking about that's going to be a transition time. But again, we are not approving the guidelines. They were provided to us as they stand right now for our review, but we're actually approving the policy.
I understand, and the policy I don't really have issues with. It's the guidelines, some of which make me uncomfortable, and that puts me in a position where I don't have any power to change that. But it's a little food policey from my perspective.
Yep.
I had a candy sandwich today, I will admit, because I had peanut butter. And peanut butter that we had has sugar as the second ingredient. Go figure. By the guidelines, that would not be allowed.
I don't believe that that's specifically says peanut butter is not
No,
allowed.
it says anything candy. It'd be, that
Right,
would be
but
candy.
I think that you're taking it very literally. The only thing that peanut butter would have, become an issue is because of people having allergies to it.
Okay.
And we do have peanut butter free, we actually have a peanut butter free school, don't we? A
But
peanut-free
ketchup,
school?
jelly, I mean,
It
all
does
these things
say-
have sugar.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
you-
hang on, one at a time, folks.
But we,
Okay.
these are the USDA guidelines.
Yeah, I
We
know.
didn't make
I got
these
a
up.
problem with USDA.
Well, then you should run for a federal job then. I'm just saying, this is what it
I
is. We are under a requirement to review the policy, which I think we have been compliant with. And we tried to streamline the policy because as it was not being followed. And this way, it seems very clear and not subject to so much, such frequent review. Let's just put it that way.
Yoli, you have
Oh,
a
I was
question?
just going to ask, what were the issues that you heard with the policy? You mentioned that somebody was.
It was more just about making sure that we understand
Oh, okay.
that like parents, because we did have parents on the task force or the subcommittee, but there was a question about the diversity of that, the parents that were on that fund. They're the ones that had the free time. That could be considered an issue. Also, I think we have to be mindful that that people in poverty eat what they can afford, and that may not follow these guidelines.
Yeah.
And we are not trying to be judgmental, and we're not trying to tell people, I think, in this policy what they're going to eat themselves. But what the guidelines are strictly talking about is that do not presume to feed some kind of item of food to somebody else's child. And I think that's where the guidelines might be questionable, or what you all might have questions on. If you want to send your kid with a cupcake and that's all they eat and lollipops and powdered jello, then that is not that policy does not say that, and I don't know where anyone would find that. But it is a problem if you want to feed somebody else's child that. So that's really where it came down. But it's going to be a big change. I think I talked about this at the last meeting. When you look for signups, which I still do for teacher appreciation, even though I don't have kids, there's a lot of requests for donuts. And my goodness, the board provides donuts for the teachers during teacher appreciation. And I think it's going to require modeling the correct, good behavior on all of our parts. So those are some things that I think we need to just make sure get properly vetted.
Joe?
So I think, yeah, it is going to be a very big change, and I think that it's likely that we will all hear from parents as board members. And so I just want to be clear, if I get questions, who should I refer those people to have an effect on the guidelines?
Just as you would do any other thing. Did you talk to your principal or your teacher? And then from your teacher to your principal, and then principal to wherever they are. But I don't believe you're going to hear, because next year is a transition time. That nothing's going into place next year. It's part of the planning phase of these guidelines.
But who affects the guidelines? Who ultimately approves the guidelines?
The administration team meets, which is all the building principals, all the administrators, right? The directors and
However,
the
the
principals.
stakeholder group drafted the guidelines. So, and their names, I don't know if they're at the bottom of it anymore, but the stakeholder group, which were primarily community members, our school nurse, our food service director, school board members. So it really was community-based. As Donna spoke, though, it's the community members that had time to come to the meeting. So it was probably not as diverse as it could have been. But they were the ones that drafted the guidelines. There were minimal changes to the guidelines by district staff. That was really from the stakeholders that attended the meeting.
Okay, I'm just trying to be really clear because people get frustrated when they come to you and, I guess it's appropriate to talk to the principal, but they can't do anything outside the guidelines. The guidelines are
But the
guidelines.
principals are going to ultimately be in charge of enforcing it at each of their buildings. They're the ones who who assigned the building teams.
Each building has a wellness.
Each building's gonna have their own team, right?
That is, and Judy, correct me on this, that is charged with monitoring, charged with having the discussion, charged with kind of how do we implement this and what does it look like in our building? And then a representative from each building wellness team sits on a district wellness team.
I would say limited monitoring, some. So it's not policing. The committee was pretty adamant about that they were not looking for somebody to check what passes through the office in the morning or check what's on the teacher's desk. They were pretty clear about that. So I think the monitoring piece will come in us better understanding why are we doing this. We're doing it for the good health of our children, not to be to punish them or penalize them in any way. We want them to be healthy, and we believe that they learn better in that kind of healthful body that they're living in, getting good food and getting good exercise. So, I mean, maybe, Joe, part of it is that it's this healthful thing. The actual policy didn't have to change very much. The problem was we didn't implement the policy we had. And so I think the biggest change will be these little teams that represent each school and are charged with being creative about how do we celebrate and reward students without it being food, which is just sort of a go-to thing. We'll just do it with food. So it's really kind of a creativity team. How can we anticipate that? So we're not trying to, I mean, the group talked a lot, I mean, they had to spend a year on this about it's not to be punitive or to take anything away from kids.
So, but what happens when the first kid brings cupcakes for their birthday?
The same thing that happened last year when the kid brought cupcakes for their birthday.
They eat the cupcakes?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solved.
Yes. And in the year, as we consume those cupcakes, we will also be looking at what else could we do? What other things might even be cooler than cupcakes? And might we want to consider that?
Okay.
Tim?
I really appreciate the recognition of this next year being a transition year to start addressing those. Because having experience having to implement these myself, when you rush, they tend to not end up getting followed. And then they become this piece of paper that nobody follows, and they sit there. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see some of this linked with sort of some of the innovation grants or whatever, you know, there's just something neat. Because I don't think anybody wants to be the food police, so how can we encourage teachers to be creative?
Right.
Whether they get a grant for it or not, I don't know, but I think there's some opportunities there. But I'm happy to hear that this is going to be a transition year, and it sounds like the administration is on the right track.
Anybody else? Questions or discussion?
I mean, I do have a few things related to the guidelines, and I understand that a lot of people spent time and a long time putting it together, but I don't know if Joe's question necessarily got answered. If there are will there be an opportunity for changes to the guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, and so if someone had a question about changes to the guidelines, if they came to us, who would we go to? And Donna said the principal.
We don't write the guidelines.
Right.
Right, so it would go to the district wellness team?
It could go to Donna, it can come to me, because the guidelines are our guidelines for how we want to implement the policy.
Okay.
So, you know, I would say creative ideas for celebrating and recognizing kids too can come to us.
Right, okay.
So as you think about that on your way home tonight, and, you know, wording or specific, you know, any ideas, those came from the smart people that were at the table, but there were only, I don't know, 12 or so on the whole team, so.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Judy.
Allison.
One very quick general comment I have mentioned after the last meeting. I've mentioned this to a few parents that I know, and so far it's been met with all positive comments.
I think we're making this into a lot. But I mean, I think it's good to, you know, discuss it. But I think it's good for all of us as board members to realize where our, you know, yes, we might get calls, but you need to be able to point people in the right direction. That's not what we do.
And that's what I just want to know where the feedback is appropriate. So if we hear ideas good or bad, we can refer those to you. We don't have to refer the people to you, but we can say, okay, you've told me that, I will pass it along, and you're the appropriate person. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. We've discussed it. All in favor of approving proposed policy 1013 as previously amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And that's approved. Next up, a resolution in opposition to proposed legislation concerning concealed firearms on school grounds. Donna, would you like to walk us through that?
Sure. This we discussed. I think we have to have a motion.
I'm sorry.
To
You want to move it then?
approve the board resolution entitled Opposition to Potential State Legislation Requiring School Districts to Allow Concealed Carry of Firearms on School Grounds.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Allison.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Discussion regarding the proposed resolution.
Great resolution, just, there's a little, I'm a nitpicker, so on school-related vehicles, and sometimes it's in school-related vehicles, so maybe it can be in or on, or maybe it's just in, I don't know.
Well, here's what I would have a suggestion. Unfortunately, I'm realizing this right now that I should have had this prepared, because ideally we would like to have this resolution signed by all board members. That's what gives it, it does not mean much. With that being said, I really would like if we can get this printed out on letterhead tonight, and that we could all sign it so that it can be dealt with while we're all here, because we don't meet again in a month. With that being said, I guess we could have done that with the letter.
Can we still?
Because Becky's got nothing else to do.
Yeah, because Becky's got nothing else to do. To be honest, I don't know if the on and the in really makes that much of a difference. I think it's really the title of the thing, and that what we would do then is send this resolution along with a cover letter to our legislators that just says, look, this is how strongly we feel.
Okay.
Is that possible for us to do that yet tonight, Becky? Okay.
Cover letter.
I'm so sorry. I mean, the cover letter, I think we can handle,
Okay.
you know, one of us you could sign it, but I think it would look good to sign the resolution.
I agree.
So, I don't know, is there any?
Oh, I have a question. So we send this and they will just, but they can still vote in favor of.
Oh, yeah.
So this is just.
It's just a resolution,
Okay.
yeah. It's, you know, it's sending a stronger message that it's something that's important to us.
Yeah.
If we had a reporter here, they would maybe put something about it in the paper, but we don't, because bus drivers were more important than this resolution. So, I mean, it's just the way it is. We lose our press every time at a certain time of the night, so. But we can, you know, put something in somehow, right? We
should send it, yeah.
Derek's raising his hand because he knows what to do. Yeah, and we can do a press release, correct? Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or
I'd just like to say, I think bus drivers are important, and guns are important, and wellness is important, so making a comment
Absolutely.
like that.
I didn't mean it in any,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm warm, I'm tired, and but it is a little, for me, it's frustrating that we lose our reporter every night on a Monday night early,
Right
so.
as we're acting on.
Right as we're acting on things, yeah.
any other questions?
Maybe we should pass a resolution.
It is on, it is.
Okay. All right then, all in favor of-
Resolution, it's got
Oh,
to
that's
do a
right.
roll call.
It's right, you're right. Thank you.
Busy looking for letterhead.
Ready. Ms. Fitzgibbon?
Yes.
Ms. Rodd?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Bourbon?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Sword?
Yes.
Ms. Tarpanian?
Yes.
President Dirks?
Yes. And then that resolution is approved, and we'll stick around and sign it yet tonight. Okay. Future board meeting and agenda items. We have our next regular board meeting on July 24th, and the next one after that is August 14th. Finance met earlier tonight. They will meet again next on July 24th. Facilities will be meeting on September 19th. Policy will meet on July 10th and August 14th. There is a board development meeting scheduled for August 21st. At this point, what I plan on having on the agenda for that night is the development of an agenda for the balance of the year through the end of April, which is when we do the reorganization meeting, as well as orientation/training on board docs, right?
Yep.
We're going to be transitioning away from Neptune to a different, similar in what it does, but a different product, and we'll get some training on that.
What about the eclipse?
I'm sorry?
What about the eclipse?
What about the eclipse?
It's that night.
It's what? Oh,
I know,
sorry
we
about
can't
that.
see it here
Well,
anyway.
I won't be here that day.
Okay, thanks.
Scott,
yeah.
Quick question on that first agenda item for the board development. Is
Mhm.
that related to my message regarding the priorities, establishing priorities?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
And then one thing that didn't get on here, and that's my fault, is just a reminder that we have a joint meeting with the City Council on Thursday, July 20th. We haven't set a time yet. I just spoke with Council President Tim Swadley this afternoon about that. What he and I contemplated doing, because there was some support from both the board and from the City Council, is rather than try to have frequent meetings between the board and the City Council, which is really hard to manage with such a large group, what we're going to do is set up an ad hoc committee comprised of members of the two groups. And what Tim and I will work on is an agenda for the July 20th meeting, where the City Council and the board will basically give a charge to that ad hoc committee on things that we want that committee to work on, recommendations for the board and the City Council. One thing that we've talked about a lot, and we talked about at the last joint meeting with City Council, is growth within the city. So, well, within the district for us. There are some others as well, but that definitely is going to be part of what that ad hoc committee works on. So, anyone interested in volunteering for that, please contact me prior to July 20th, if possible. And once we have an agenda worked out, we'll get that out to everybody. It's got to be publicly posted anyway. So, yes, Yoli?
Tomorrow, there is a public hearing.
Oh.
And it's the last one.
Yes, thank you. The city's comprehensive plan has its last meeting tomorrow at City Hall at 7?
7, I believe.
Okay. If you can make it, it would be good to be there. I don't think that this board has had as much input on that process as would be ideal. And one can discuss the reasons why that's happened, but anyway, they're basically at the last step of their process in developing that plan, and
There are some issues with the school boundaries and everything.
Yeah.
I even looked at the documents, and they basically don't have anything.
right. Right, so if you can make it to that meeting, I would encourage you to go. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joe, second?
Second.
From Yoli. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, folks. We got a lot done tonight. We're adjourned.